Over the years, we have reported on the progress of autonomous big rig trucks. From that first for-hire autonomous load of beer that was transported from Fort Collins to Colorado Springs back in 2015, to the various autonomous test rigs plying Interstate 10 in the American Southwest for the US Postal Service and FedEx, to name a couple, we knew this day was coming. And more importantly, we know why. I want to quote a Wall Street Journal article, but I've got an issue with this article where they try to throw some bricks. So I'm going to skip to the part that's got me kind of wound. The Wall Street Journal article says, self-driving big rigs are coming. Is America ready? This was written on June 18th, so about a month ago. I quote, longer term, robot trucks could go from driver shortage solutions to driver job killer. There are approximately 500,000 truck drivers in America, says Dr. Vanishnav, I think is how you pronounce that. Long-haul trucking jobs are among the most taxing and difficult, but are also the best paid jobs in the trucking industry. I say doubtful and I call malarkey. Let me explain why. Number one, the trucking industry is having a heck of a time getting drivers for the long haul. These 500,000 jobs is a drop in the bucket against the 4 million, actually 3.5 million trucking jobs, which covers everything from last mile to middle mile to all kinds of trucking. So it's a fraction of it. Number two, average age of an over-the-road trucker is early 50s. A lot of them retired during COVID because they didn't want to be exposed to it. There is a bona fide shortage, and the article does make note of it right now, of 80,000 drivers. What the article didn't say, but we've reported on, is that promises to get much worse in the next 5 to 6 years, upwards of 160,000 over-the-road truckers that they're going to need. Everybody in the industry, whether they are a fleet operator, a current driver, or somebody looking at the industry, has said that with the way, because there's so few of these autonomous trucks, once they do start going on the roads for hire, it will take years for them to have an impact in numbers. And in fact, the American Trucking Association even said that if you enter the industry now, chances of a autonomous truck displacing you over a 30-year trucking career are slim. And even if they did, even if this evolves at a faster rate than they predict, there are other jobs right now, middle mile jobs, where you go from a terminal to make a delivery, but you're home that night. And first mile, last mile. Autonomous trucks right now are not equipped for what we call first mile, last mile. From the terminal to the interstate, from the interstate to the terminal. And deliveries in cities? No, that's not happening. No time soon. And any of these autonomous trucking companies will tell you that they're going to need a driver to come in to cities. In fact, if you notice right now for the last 10 to 15 years in the United States, you notice near any major urban area, and that includes Des Moines, they've been building large warehouses just off of interstates. Why? Because that will facilitate autonomous trucks for to run the interstate, because what they talk about, the autonomous companies talk about, is the sameness of interstate grade, interstate layout, interstate operation. And a bunch of companies, including TuSimple and some others, Aurora Technologies, have been running Interstate 10 between Dallas and Phoenix for 2 or 3 years now. This is not new. They've been doing this, hauling the mail, hauling loads between this. So what you're looking at are particular lanes and particular interstates that they will be launching autonomous trucks. And maybe as early as next year is what they're talking about. You're not going to suddenly see a fleet of 2,000 to 3,000, 4,000 trucks autonomously running all over the country. Not happening. There's still issues where, inclement weather, basically, honestly, north of Joplin, Missouri, where weather can get unpredictable in the great Midwest. It's still going to take even longer for them to perfect operating in cold, operating in snow, operating in zero visibility, where you may have traction issues. That's going to come, but that's going to be later, not sooner.
Yeah, I think the autonomous taking over jobs has been a fear-mongering for the last 10 to 20 years. Andrew Yang, the presidential candidate, basically ran on that, and he had a book about all these predictions, none of which have really came true. It's not to say they won't, but we kind of underestimate how much these autonomous machines and robots actually help with the hardest part of jobs, the most laborious part. They help lift things, they help take things down, they help package. They said at Walmart and McDonald's that all of the automatic machines were going to replace the jobs. People still have their jobs there. These just help with the
They facilitate.
They facilitate. And so I think we should be look at it more with optimism than fear.
I believe that what autonomous trucking will do, like automating assembly plants, they automated the most difficult, dangerous parts of automobile manufacturing. You still have thousands of workers working in these plants, but the dangerous stuff, they don't necessarily do anymore. Right now, the toughest job, which pays well for a reason, is long-haul trucking. Basically, you're a nomad, and it's tough to get people to be away from their families for days and weeks at a time. It doesn't work well. And with people wanting more freedom in their time, what that's going to do is going to push people in the middle mile and first and last mile trucking. In other words, from the interstate to the terminal, from the terminal to an urban delivery site, or picking up a load in a city, bringing it to the terminal and turning it over to the autonomous control. That's going to take years, if that ever changes. But I predicted this years ago. I see a day where you're running autonomous trucks, mainly at night, across the interstate, maybe from midnight to 6 in the morning, when you don't have much passenger traffic, where you're running hardcore, and because of that, maybe they're allowed higher speeds, and they're running terminal to terminal. That's what I see coming, and I still stand behind that, because that would alleviate a lot of problems, particularly since they're not subject to federal hours of service other than maintenance and fuel. And once they go electric or fuel cell electric, in the case of the heavy big rigs, it just drives down the cost and everybody benefits. Because right now, after labor, what's killing transportation is the high cost of diesel fuel, which is still over $5 a gallon. They talk about if you save 1 cent a gallon, how that flows through the bottom line in millions, if not billions of dollars, and how that cost reverberates through the economy. Because if a truck brought it, which is 70% of everything you get, you've got to pay for the fuel, you got to pay for the driver, yada, yada, yada.